Welcome to the show, everyone. Today we got two great guests today. We have of what a testimony they have. We have Kristyn Schott and we have Laura Williams, who is my wife. And they have a testimony to share with you guys today of what God has done for them with the crisis that they went through in their life with eating disorders, and also Kristyn's going to talk about helping people with the mental health as well. Welcome, guys, to the show. And Kristyn, we'll start with you. Can you tell us about your ministry and how this all came about, and how's it going with your ministry?
Yes, of course. So, basically in college, my second semester, freshman year as a college athlete, I started struggling with an eating disorder, and it took over my life for about 2.5 years ish. And from there, I not only struggled with an eating disorder, but also just fell away from God a whole bunch. And just seeing how he brought me out of that, brought me to where I am now, and brought me even closer to him than I was before my eating disorder. It's just a testament to his goodness and all the work that he's done in my life. And so, from having gone through all of that in college, he placed the idea to just help other people. It's kind of like shine a light, like he brought me out of the darkness. And so now, he's sending me back into the darkness to help other people who are struggling, to shine a light, to show them that there is hope in God, that, Christ has set them free and things like that. So that's really what my passion for helping people with eating disorders, and also just mental health in general, because eating disorders is a mental health, and a lot of times it goes along with mental health. And I also just think that in a lot of, by no fault of the church, but a lot of times, like, we just don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about eating disorders. And that's just something that a lot of Christians and a lot of, women and men and people all over the world struggle with. And so my passion is really to show people that, like, it's okay to be struggling, that there's nothing wrong with them, that God doesn't, God still loves them, all of those kinds of things, and to really just help walk with them and guide them, to show them, the hope that we have in Jesus, even as we're struggling with something such as mental health or eating disorders or things like that.
Amen. Wow. Yeah, that's kind of like you don't see the mental part, right? Because it's no physical scars like physical, right? And it's
Exactly.
yeah. Wow. So that's really great. Well, let's bring Laura in. Laura has a testimony. She's my wife, and she is going to explain her struggle with this disease as well. Laura, would you like to share with Kristyn and everybody about that?
Sure. I got my eating disorder when I was in my 20s, and I struggled about, like you, almost 2 years. And it was bad. Like you said, I was a Christian, but I was away from God at that point. I was away from God, and I had a lot of self-image issues, as well as biologically, I could not have children. So that was something that I felt like God was almost punishing me for some reason, because I couldn't biologically have children, that I wasn't good enough. So, but then I got, we decided to try to adopt, and nothing happened. You know how that is with adoption. But we finally got approved, and 6 months after, we had a baby in our hands. So, which is amazing. And that's when I totally stopped, because I knew that he was more important, that our child was going to be more important than me, so I would focus on him. So, and I turned all my focus on him and God instead of myself. So, so
And
that's a little bit of
he was
me.
quite a child to have focused on. He was a very active boy, so that was kind of good. Yeah,
God knew what we needed. Yep,
yeah,
God knew what I
absolutely,
needed. Yep, He knew exactly what I
absolutely.
needed. Yep,
Kristyn,
He kept me busy.
I have a question for you. What is the do men males have this issue too? If they do, what the percentage is? Is it more in females?
Yes, for sure, men do. I know that's a common misconception that it's only with women, but definitely males of any age can struggle with an eating disorder. I don't know the exact percentage. I know it's definitely more prominent in women. eating disorders and disordered eating in general. I believe I heard a stat a few months ago that was like 1 in every 4 women struggle with disordered eating of some sort, whether it is an actual eating disorder or not. So definitely more prominent in women, but yeah, that's another huge misconception that men don't struggle with body image issues or eating issues or anything like that, because they definitely do.
Mm-hmm. Do you know of any males personally that going through that?
I fortunately do not know
Mm-hmm.
any. I know I follow a couple that I've seen throughout, and I think what tends to be most common with men, not all men for sure, but they kind of have like what they call bigorexias, where they see men that have a lot of muscle, and so that's their goal, is like, I have to look like that, and just I think at the end of the day, both women and men, it just comes from unrealistic body standards that society has placed upon us. Of
Mm-hmm.
women need to look a certain way, men need to look a certain way, and if you don't look like that, then you're not worthy or beautiful or attractive or anything like that. So
So
it
the
definitely
Barbie
hits
and
both
Ken,
ends.
the Barbie and Ken
Essentially, yeah.
thing.
If you don't look like Barbie and Ken, then something's wrong with you. When in reality,
Mm-hmm.
God made so many beautiful body types and people just to look so different in their own way.
Right, right. So, can you explain to us about your ministry that you started, how it got started, and what exactly you do?
Yes. So my ministry originally started with my book. After I went through my eating disorder, God so very clearly spoke to me that He wanted me to write a book, a devotional for girls and women who had struggled with an eating disorder, just to share what I had gone through and to be a hope for them, which I was not expecting at all. But so it kind of started there with my book. But then it kind of grew a little bit bigger, and I call it Created for More ministry. But essentially, I want people, especially young girls and women, just because that's my experience, and I can relate to them more than I can to males. But just really to know how God created them for so much more than this world tells them to live for. You're created for so much more purpose than just to look a certain way, than just to fit into a societal standard, whether that's looks or achievements or anything like that. And so my ministry consists of like social media and for the most part of just putting out posts along with my book that I have out. But really just wanting to share. I love to write, so sharing whatever words God puts on my heart, hoping that I can just inspire, bring hope, hoping that sharing my story will resonate with someone else and help them to get the help they need or help them find hope in all of that. And yeah, just really coming from my experiences of what God has done in my life, I want people to know that there's hope for Him to do that in their lives as well.
Right. Um, this is a question for both of you, so it doesn't matter which one. I guess Laura, you get it started, and Kristen, you can too as well. Am I saying your name right? Kristen? Is it Kristen?
Kristyn, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I can butcher names. I apologize. Um, uh, all right, Laura, we'll throw this at you, and then Kristen can probably join in too. What exactly for someone who's never experienced this? And I went through it with on the other side because we were married, and I still didn't understand because I didn't experience it. I mean, the family, it affects the whole family, right? It affects everyone. Everyone is, whether if you're all sucked into it somehow, but it affects everybody differently. So what do you think besides the way is it all just the world that is doing this to these young women and some men that they uh, turn out this way, or is it their childhood? What brings this on, and how do you know that what makes you want to turn to that?
Um, for me, it was many different factors. It's not just one thing. And it's a lot, like she said, it has a lot to do with your mental health and how you perceive yourself more than, and it can be, your childhood, depending on what type of childhood you had. There could be many factors
Mhm.
that come into it. But everybody's going to have one for some different reason. I'd like to first explain what an eating disorder is, just for some people that may not know. An eating disorder, you can either have bulimia or anorexia. Bulimic or anorexia. Bulimic is when you'll binge and purge, and then anorexia is when you withhold food. You don't eat for whatever reason. Again, like we talked about. I was both. I don't know about you, Kristen. if you had both. I did both. So did you do
Yes.
both? Yes.
I had anorexia to start with, and then I actually formed more into orthorexia, which is a little bit less common, but kind of newer, where I was
Hmm.
obsessed with healthy eating. So I wasn't necessarily restricting myself, but I had a ton of food rules about what food was good or bad.
Mm,
So I continued to
Mhm.
lose weight because I was eating nothing but vegetables and chicken for all my meals, pretty much, because everything
wow.
else was unclean, bad, unhealthy food that I wasn't allowed
Right.
to eat.
So
Yeah.
is this kind of like also a control thing too as well? You feel that that's the only thing you can control in your life because something's missing, or maybe I'm not explaining that right. Is it have something to do with that, or just feel that
Yeah. Do
if
you want
you
to speak, Laura, or do you want me to?
you can both
Okay.
of you can
Yeah.
you
Go
can.
ahead, Kristen. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Laura that it is many different factors. And I think, they're still trying to figure it out. Some of it could be environmental, it could be genetics, it could be how you were raised, it could be the world. So for me, I think it was two things. One, part of it was the world. I was seeing a lot of women on my Instagram and social media with certain body types that just weren't mine. And as a college athlete, I didn't look like those, but I wanted to look like those because I thought that's what the world wanted or expected out of, me. And then the other part was control for me. So I think not for everyone for sure, but a big part for a lot of people is control. Is when your life feels out of control, whether that's a big event that happened or college is a huge change or whatever the case may be. You turn to food and exercise because that's what you can control. I can control what I put, or how much I put into my mouth, or how much exercise I do. And so for me, control definitely wasn't a part of it.
Okay, Laura, what about you?
I'd say yes, definitely control was part of it because I felt like I couldn't control anything else in my life, like as far as having a baby. So I was like, but I can control this. I control what I put in and how much I exercise. And I remember in treatment, it about freaked me out when they came out one day and gave us a single serving of potato chip bags. You know what I'm talking about? And that was part of our lunch. And we all looked at each other like, you're kidding, and we had to eat it. You ate what you put on your plate. That was part of the treatment program.
Mm,
And I looked at that, and we all looked at each other like, you're kidding us. You expect us to eat a bag of potato chips, because that was like a taboo. That was like, oh, no, that's not, again, the good, the bad food. And, that was
mm,
a bad food. You don't eat that.
mm.
So it definitely is control. I think a lot of it. I mean, again, obviously not all of it, but it's definitely there.
Kristen, how did you? I mean, we know God healed you. Did you also go to a program as well, or did?
So I didn't. I did know I had people that I knew who did, and they've had wonderful success, and I think they're
Hmm.
great. I ended up didn't because
Wow.
partly I was still a college athlete. So once I finished that, and God had kind of like showed me that I had an eating disorder that I needed to start recovery. I ended up just recovering on my own, just increasing my
Wow.
food, stopping exercise, things like that. But I think recovery, like treatment centers and plans like that, can be super
Hmm.
helpful. I just didn't end up doing one.
Wow, that's still a miracle, though. I mean, because
That's
a lot of
amazing.
people, yeah, that is totally amazing because you need a lot of people need that support and everything. Would you? I take it your family was supportive, helping you.
Yes, they definitely were supportive. I was a little nervous that I didn't open up to them about it at first because I was like
Hmm.
really, first of all, ashamed, like, oh my gosh, I'm a Christian, I've
Right.
struggled with this and
Right.
all of this stuff. But when I did open up to them, they were very supportive about me, and all along the journey, like very receptive to,
Hmm.
hey, like I need accountability with this food, or just really helping me understand like what my fear foods were and helping me to eat those and cooking me loving meals and stuff. So they were definitely very supportive.
That's great. That's great. Well, Laura, I'm not trying to brag about myself, but I tried to be supportive with you. How I found out with Laura was, believe it or not, a coworker called me up and was noticing this with her, what she was doing, and I confronted her, and that's how I found out. So thank the Lord for that coworker who was observant about that. But yeah, Laura, share with her some of the stuff that you were doing that I was not aware of.
Uh, I was throwing up, and I would tell him that it was just my migraines because I used to get migraines. So I would just say it's my migraine. I would send him out at night just to get something so I could throw up. so I'd be able to throw up. I would hide laxatives. I was taking laxatives. He had no idea, and I was hiding them. So it was all. And when he confronted me, I just burst out crying. And he was like, "Are you doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, I was honest, because I was tired of hiding it, tired
So
of lying.
that was kind of like relief, right?
Oh, exactly. It was
Yeah.
almost like a relief to be
Yeah.
caught. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? To quit hiding it,
Right.
and that you were aware, and not lie to you anymore about it. But yeah, I would send him out just so I could throw up. I would go for a long walk, just say, "Oh, I'm just gonna go for a walk," but I was really, exercising, that type of stuff. So those
Mm-hmm.
are a few things that I would do.
Mm-hmm. Do you both find that since the Lord has healed you, I mean, you still find it, I'm sure we're only human. Do you find days today that it's still struggling? This is something that affects you for the rest of your life? It's not like you're just like never going to, like an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. Is this almost the same thing, Kristyn? You could start with that if you like.
Yeah, so I do think that true recovery is possible. I don't think you're always going to be in this half in, half out state. But again, like you said, we all are human, so we're all going to struggle with something, whether it's this or alcoholism or
Mm-hmm.
depression or XYZ. And so there are still days where, whether that's a bad body image day, I just really won't like the way that I look, or
Mm-hmm.
a food thought will pop back in, like, oh, should you really be eating this? You already had, XYZ this morning. Should you also be having this now? So there definitely are times and days that those thoughts or those ideas pop up. But I think what shows that the Lord has delivered me from it and redeemed me is how I handle those and how I react. I don't give in. I don't say, yeah, I'll have one more cookie, but I'll run 10
Mm-hmm.
miles tomorrow or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly like, no, I'm able to listen to my body and trust and know like I have been set free from this. So I can, when those thoughts do come, I don't act upon them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Laura, what about you?
I totally agree. Food will always be my issue. Obviously, it's always going to be my issue. Is it as bad now? No.
Mm-hmm.
And I eat a cookie and I don't freak out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to say, "Oh, I need to go throw up," or "I need to go," like you said, Kristyn, run 10 miles the next day.
Mhm.
That type of thing. I'm okay with that now, where before I wouldn't be. Since God has cured me, thank you, God. And He knew I needed my son at that
Mm-hmm.
time. And we got him when God knew that it was His timing, because we
Yeah.
were married 8 years before we got him.
Yeah.
So it was His timing. He knew that was the time, and we got a beautiful child, and I got healed at the same time.
Yeah, that's what
So
we call a real living testimony.
yeah,
Was
literally.
him. But
Yeah.
yeah, when Laura was going through, she was with a Christian counselor and everything, and when this was brought up from the adoption agency, we weren't really supposed to adopt through these. We just did the home study. It was Bethany Christian Agency in Atlanta, Georgia, is where we lived at the time. And they contacted us, says, "Hey, we know we did your home study, but we really want to put you in contact with this mother who think would be a great match." And I'm like, and they said it was a baby boy and everything. To make a long story short, I called Laura and I told her about it. I said, "What would you do? How would you handle your illness?" She goes, I would stop and focus on the baby," is what she more or less said. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what I can remember she said. And the Christian counselor said to me, and she was thinking like, "Well, I don't think Laura can handle this," and blah blah blah. I go, "Wait a minute, this is coming from the Lord. We don't want to turn that away. We need to trust Him. He knows what's best." And I think that would be an insult and a slap in his face. I said, "We need to trust Him and let this go forward." And says, "You know what? You're right. Thank you for saying that." And thank goodness we did, because look at the outcome. I mean, it was so
Yeah.
bad that they were thinking about putting her back in the hospital, and it was literally
Yeah.
life and death at that time.
I was still losing weight, and they're
Mhm.
like, I was even living with my nutritionist, and it's like we don't know what else to do for her. She's going to have to go back in the hospital,
Mhm.
because I was still losing weight and doing things I shouldn't be doing to my
Mhm.
body. And then it was literally a miracle. God just, He knew what I needed and knew the time, because yeah, they were ready to put me back in the hospital because I still
Mhm.
wasn't, recovering and doing what I need to do after going in for 30 days.
Mhm.
So,
Do you see Kristyn why we say what a miracle you are? Seriously, I mean that is just
yep. Yeah,
amazing that
it
you didn't
amazes
go
me.
that the Lord just wow, that's just incredible. And there's some people, even believers, that have died from this.
Mhm.
I'm sure of that.
Uh,
It's just
Oh, yeah.
where you see that. Um, Kristyn, what do you and Laura as well? I'll start with Kristyn. What do you say to people that are now maybe just realizing that they have this, or they know they have this, and they're trying to do this? They have the same feelings that you guys had, feeling embarrassed about it. What encouraging words can you give to them, and that give them hope and help? Obviously, it's the Lord Jesus, but confronting family and that kind of thing, or what do you recommend when someone's going through that right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Definitely, I mean, I'm gonna quote scripture here, but in Romans 8,
Hmm.
1, how it says, now there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And I think that's so important to hold on to when you are putting like shame and guilt on yourself, or when the enemy is trying to guilt you, being like, oh my gosh, you're a Christian, how could you be struggling with this? Because the truth is, and God knows this, we're human. We're all gonna struggle with something, again, whether it's an eating disorder, whether it's alcoholism or X, Y, and Z. Like, we're just
Hmm.
all human. We're broken, we're flawed, etc.
Hmm.
So I think holding on to that and realizing, okay, God is not shaming you, God is not upset at you, like He loves you just as you are right now. I think that can give you a lot of hope for then moving forward and like telling family and friends and getting the help that you need, knowing that God loves you right where you're at.
Hmm.
So I'd encourage that. The second thing is definitely I would encourage like to tell someone and to get help, whether that is your friends and family, whether that is a professional counselor, nutritionist, etc. Like I think sometimes the stigma is like, oh, if I'm a Christian, God is all I need. Like I don't need anyone's help but me and God. Which yes, God is our ultimate healer, and He will deliver you, and He will like do all those things. But at the same time, like He put people on this earth, He put
Amen.
counselors and nutritionists and doctors and
Amen.
XYZ to help us as well. And
Amen.
so I think don't let the enemy lie and be like, oh, you only need God. Like reach out if you think you need more help than just family. Reach out to counselors and therapists and doctors and treatment programs. And don't be afraid to do those things because they're not bad. Like it's not bad if you need extra help as a Christian.
Yeah, that's great advice, Kristyn. Great advice. Laura, what about you?
I think the number one thing is don't be ashamed. Do
Mhm.
not be ashamed. Again, like you said, Kristyn, we are human. We are flawed. We all sin and fallen short. So do not be ashamed, even if you're a Christian. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. It just means that you're gonna get you love Jesus and you know He's your Savior. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect.
Mhm.
Just know that you are still loved no matter what you have done.
Mhm.
You are loved by God no matter
I,
what you have done, and do not be ashamed. I was so embarrassed,
mhm.
and you don't have to be embarrassed because you can be a Christian. Like I said, that doesn't mean you're perfect. We are human and have all fallen short of the glory of God. I mean, it's just, so do not be ashamed. And like I said, and tell somebody to
Mhm.
get help
Mhm.
because you need everybody. You can't do it alone. Just like you had your family,
But
you necessarily, Kristyn, you didn't go to treatment, which is amazing. And that's great that your family helped you, but we can't do it alone with God. You
yeah, he
need
uses
support.
people. He uses
Right,
people.
exactly. He works through
Yeah,
people
he
to
looks at people.
exactly,
Like he's doing
exactly.
like what he's doing with Kristen's ministry right now. He's using you to help others, and that's just wonderful. What about either one of you can answer this? I guess Kristyn, you can. Either one doesn't matter. Um, isn't there also another kind of eating disorder where people just they don't get sick and they just continue to eat and eat and eat? Isn't that also fall into that same category as well? Or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I mean, it could be like there definitely is like the anorexia is where you don't eat and you starve yourself and you everything.
Hmm.
And like Laura mentioned at the beginning, bulimia is where you eat a lot and then purge it. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura. I don't think there's an exact term for people who just keep eating, eating, eating,
Hmm.
eating. I know I used to be a personal trainer and I did have clients be like, oh, like maybe I should have you booked, because sometimes I just can't stop eating. And I think it's a tricky line. Like some people who just like happen to overeat in a meal, like they may think that that's an eating disorder, but truly like an eating disorder is a pattern of eating and sometimes exercising that like takes over your life. It's not like a one-time event that you just happen to overeat tonight, or you just happen to eat a little bit extra this weekend or something. So it really is something that controls and takes over your life. So I'm not aware of a specific thing where you keep eating without purging or without getting rid of it.
I would imagine it's some kind of disorder. I would imagine, because
Yeah, there probably is.
that's your drug,
Yeah.
right? Is food, and that's one thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I would imagine it's harder with food because you need food to survive. You see food every day. Would you guys not agree about that? Am I wrong?
Oh, definitely. You face your addiction 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
You eat, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and in between, you see billboards for food. It's everywhere. It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is everywhere. Exactly.
Yeah, they do push that. Yeah, they sure
Exactly.
do.
It's
Yeah, they sure
everywhere.
do. They sure do. Laura, I know that you have some questions for Kristyn that you told me this morning that you wanted to ask her about, and so I turned it over to you.
Hey, I was wondering how you realized and came to the realization that you had an eating disorder.
Yeah, so that was once again God's amazing, intervention. So when, like I said, I first struggled with anorexia, where I was over exercising as a college athlete, hardly eating anything, lost a whole bunch of weight. So when I got home from that semester, and my mom had noticed, and she like weighed me, and she's like, "You've lost like a lot of weight." Like, and I was like, "Yes, I'm done trying to lose weight. That was just a couple months thing. I'm good." And then that's when the orthorexia had hit, and I continued to lose another 10 to 15 pounds that I really couldn't afford to lose because I was so fixated on only healthy, clean, etc. foods. And so, in my senior year of volleyball, as a college athlete, I broke my rib during one of our games at the beginning of the season. And I was so mad at God because I was having a really great preseason. And I was like, why would you do this to me? And he used that to show me that I wasn't healthy, that I needed to gain weight, that I needed to stop exercising and eat more and all of that. So he really just spoke to me through that of like, look, like the way you are treating your body right now is not a good steward of the body that I've given you. It's not healthy. And so he really used me breaking my rib, having to take, 8 plus 10 weeks off of playing volleyball to show me that.
Okay. That's it. Yeah, God's amazing how
Yes.
he, and he does it, like, again, I said, in his time.
Mm-hmm.
When he knows it's your time. Like I said, I didn't admit it. I knew, but I didn't admit it until my work had called wait. And they were so scared I was going to be mad, and I was just grateful,
Mm-hmm.
because I was tired of the lying and the hiding, and, I was just tired of it.
Exactly.
So,
Like he said, it is a relief because you're doing so much in secret. And that's why I think your point of telling somebody is so important, because whenever we keep things in secret, like it's so easy for it to like eat us away and break us down. Like the enemy wants us to keep it in secret, but it's like when we tell people, when we open it up to the light, like that's when healing can begin, because we're like, it's a relief of like, okay, I'm not the only one who knows this. Actually, I can get help now. It's not just me against the world and me against my eating disorder.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because you almost feel like isolated. And I say that you against the world. Exactly. That's what it feels like. Exactly. You're exactly right. Exactly. So when did you realize that God was going to use this for his glory? Was there a certain like aha moment? You know what I mean? That you realized I'm going to get to use this for his glory. You know what I mean?
Yes, no, that's a great question. So I'd say, he broke my rib in September of 2017. That's when he like showed me, hey, you have an eating disorder, you need help, etc. You need to gain weight, get better, all of those things. And then March of 2018 is when I was at a Christian one-day conference for people who wanted to be entrepreneurs one day. And I just decided to go with my dad, just tag along. And one of the sessions they had was on self-publishing. And I knew I wanted to write a book one day, sometime far in the future. But I was like, I'll just go to that and take some notes. And we were in a circle and people were mentioning books that they were writing or wanted to write. And I was like, I don't have any idea. He had put this idea in the back of my head, but I was like, I'm not going to write that, because at that time I had told a lot of people about my eating disorder because I was ashamed. So I was like, I'm not going to write a book
Yeah.
about it and tell the whole world, hey, I had this.
Yeah.
And so when it was my turn to speak, I did not know what I was going to say. I opened my mouth, and out of my mouth came, I'm writing a devotional for girls and women who have struggled with an eating disorder. And I kind of looked around the room and I was like, where did that come from? Like, legit, that was God speaking through me. And so from that, people were like, oh, that's amazing. And then they started to say, like, my mom struggled with it. My friend struggled with it. Like, I got to see, okay, like, it's not so scary to open up about it. And there are a lot of people who are struggling with it. And so I think it was in that moment that he made me speak that out loud. I was like, okay, like, as much as it pained me, as much as I was upset at myself for having gone through this, like, it's going to be for his glory, because I'm going to get to help by sharing my story, whether through my book or just talking to someone one-on-one. I'm going to get to share my story and help someone else who's going through it and bring God the glory ultimately.
That's awesome. And that's what God wants. He puts
Mhm.
us through it. That is so awesome, because like, that God puts us through stuff to help people,
Mhm.
to be able to help people. So I think that's incredible, because I've had it for a while. Obviously, I've been recovered for a long time, and I've always wanted to know, God, please show me how to help people, that have had what I've had, so I can help them, because I was lucky enough, to recover and all that. And, I want to give you the glory, because I know it's you. And that, I've asked God to show me. I think that's amazing that that he's led you to this, because, to help people and tell your story. So that's awesome. Very amazing.
Exactly. And I think it also helps take away some of the guilt and the shame when you realize, like, okay, I went through this, but it's going to help someone. Like, if I had never been through this, I couldn't then help people. And just to realize, like, it does become part of your testimony, and that's when it becomes powerful, because you can show the victory and the redemption over it, and it's not so shameful because you are using it for God's glory.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes it not so shameful, because you are using it for his glory. And I think that's awesome. And I hope God can show me, how I can use it for his glory, because that's what I want also, to be able to, to show people that, God does heal, and don't be ashamed, and it is okay, because we all have those feelings, about ourselves sometimes,
Yeah.
not such great feelings. So, I mean, like you said, we're all human. So, and so for your recovery, you didn't go to any treatment center or anything like that?
No, I
Was
did start
it
seeing a nutritionist, um,
okay?
who helped me kind of put me on like a certain calorie to make sure I was eating enough and getting enough, and gave me like snack ideas that were away from my food rules. So I did see her probably for about 6 months. But no, I didn't go to like a hospital or an inpatient or outpatient program or anything like that.
Okay. So did you actually see a counselor or just nutritionist then?
I just saw a nutritionist at first. Probably about a year later, I did start seeing a counselor partly for that, and then for other stuff as well. But the main thing was nutritionist, um, to be able to help me with, gaining the weight and eating how I needed to be eating.
Yeah. And get rid of the fear of food,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's what my nutritionist was working with me, is basically showing me how to cook and not be afraid to eat,
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like I said, it's not easy.
No.
It's not. It's not. It's not easy. I was down. Do you know what size you went down to? What size were you down to at your lowest?
I don't know what size I was like down to, but I do know it was about almost 30 pounds lower than like a healthy like weight for me.
Yeah, I was in a kid's 14,
Wow.
because I'm small anyway. I'm like barely 5 foot, but still, a kid's 14. That's what I was. Yeah. So, and I was so proud of that.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
you do.
thought that would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, isn't this awesome? I
I
thought,
know
and
it
then
does become almost like a prize, like, and that's why it can be dangerous too. You can be like, oh well, like I'm not as small as her. Like I got smaller than this person, kind of thing. It does become, and then once you hit there, like it's never enough. You're like, oh, once I get down to this size, like I'll be good. Down to this weight, I'll be happy. That's what I thought, but no, then you just keep losing and keep losing. So, I totally get where you're coming from.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and like you said, it's really weird because you think, oh well, if I get down to this much, I'll be good, and it's like, no, that's not enough. Then you
No.
look and say exactly, and they had us in treatment once. It was interesting. They said, hold out your arms. So we had out our arms. They cut the string. They said, now do a circle how big your waist is. And of course, everybody was like 10 times bigger, than what you
Yeah.
really look like. Exactly. And they were like, okay, now let us ask you what's in that extra space.
Mm.
Yep. They're
Wow.
like, okay, what is filling that space? Because
Wow.
there's,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was interesting. It was, and I went through with alcoholics and drug addicts because it's all an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I mean, we like the Edie's ate alone. We ate in the
Mm-hmm.
dining room and had to clean our plate and all that stuff. So, but I didn't know when I first went, they asked, of course, do you have any allergies? And I was like, no. And then so they make you eat food you don't like. And I'm like, exactly. I'm like, I wish I would have known that. I would.
Yeah, I think you said it was beets, right, or something. They try to make you eat
Yeah,
beets.
Ooh.
that's the
Yeah,
one thing I
yeah.
remember was
I
beets.
I agree
Yeah,
with
and
that.
I
Yeah.
was, and I was like, really? Why didn't I say I was allergic to that?
Yeah. Like I changed my mind. I forgot I am allergic to that.
Yeah, right.
Let me write a list. So let me ask both of you all this too. Do you find yourself you're more tuned in and you can see someone who has an eating disorder? Is that I'm not saying that you have like a radar, but maybe if it's someone, did you have probably a relationship that you would have to be tuned in? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Do you find yourself tuned into that if you can tell that person has that a problem? Kristyn, have you experienced that?
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, and I would say yes. I know it's very hard because eating disorders aren't always physical. Like someone can look like they're
Mhm.
perfectly healthy and normal physically, but still have that mental, eating disorder mindset going on. But I will say I think it's easier for me to notice, whether that's in friends and family or even like messages that I see on Instagram. Like it's easy for me to be like, that's disordered eating, like an eating disorder mindset, and be able to pick it out because I've been through that and I know what it was like then. So like once you've been through it, it's like I think it's a little bit easier to recognize because you can see yourself in them. It's like, yeah, I was doing those exact same things. So I looked, very similar to that, or I was losing weight rapidly just like that. So it's not always 100% because again, they could have an illness, they could be going through grief, like other things going on. But I think it is easy to at least recognize some of the signs and habits because you recognize that from your own life that you went through.
Yeah. Laura, what about you?
I totally agree. And it may not be, like she said, it may be someone's been ill, or something like that. But basically, yeah, you tend to be able to spot it,
Mhm,
to be able to spot it because you've been there. It's like, oh, yeah, that's what I did.
mhm,
They're doing the same thing, the
mhm,
same mindset.
mhm. Have either of you, when you were going through this, did you experience with any family members or friends that would say to you because they don't understand, What do you mean? Why can't you just snap out of it? Why? What's wrong with you? Just stop doing it. Just stop doing it. Isn't that the same thing telling a drug addict or an alcoholic? Have either one of you experienced that by chance or no?
So luckily, I didn't experience that from any friends or family, but I know
Hmm.
that is a common misperception where people are like, "Oh, you have an eating disorder, like just eat." And they make it
Hmm.
sound so simple, it's like
Right.
just eat the cookie, just eat the fries, just eat whatever, XYZ. And that's exactly like telling an alcoholic, just don't have a drink. Or that's exactly like
Hmm.
telling a drug addict, just don't take the next, shot of heroin or whatever. And
Hmm.
that's why it really isn't mental illness. Like it's not just a matter of like, yeah, let me just eat. It truly is your brain yelling
Hmm.
at you, don't eat this or X, like do this. So
Hmm.
luckily I didn't have anyone do that. I had very supportive people in my life, but I know for a lot of people they may experience that. And so I just want you to know, like, it's not as simple as just eat or just stop exercising. It truly is a
Hmm.
process.
Absolutely. Laura, what about you?
I don't believe I had anybody say just eat. You know what I mean? I don't understand
Hmm.
why didn't you just eat? I'm
Hmm.
sure people were thinking that.
Hmm.
I'm sure they were. It's like, well, why didn't you just eat? I don't get it. But like you said, it's not that simple. It again, it's like telling that alcoholic, well, just don't take a drink.
Hmm.
It's not that simple. And like I said before, you face that addiction 3 times a day or more. So it's not that simple, just
Hmm.
to say that. And so no, if somebody has said that to you and you have eating disorder, it's not that simple.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's not.
Then those aren't the people that are going to be good to support you. That you don't need to be around that, because that's not going to help you out at all. Probably the proper answer is to be, I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm going to be there with you and support you. You know what I mean? I mean, because if you're not walking in those shoes, you don't know what it's like. And I can speak that on the family members that, like Chris, we talked earlier about this. It affects the entire family. I had to go to support. What do they call it, Laura? Where the family goes?
Al-Anon.
Yeah, it was like that, and where I had to learn how to deal with it. I mean, it was so exhausting for me, because before Laura went in for treatment and I knew this was happening, you had to find the place and everything. So it took some time. I didn't sleep at night because I was wondering, was she getting up, getting sick, and constantly wanting. That was exhausting me. And I learned through going through that support that I had to let that go, and know that she's getting treatment, and that's their problem, not mine. Because I have to, they said you don't want to be sick from this as well. So, you know, uh, so I find that, for the family members, it affects them as well. And I recommend, that because they're not going to be familiar, but this is the first thing that has happened to them, and they never experienced this disease. They're going to need some information. They're going to need to know how to handle it, the right and wrong thing to say and do, and you don't want to be, you can't be in control of that person doing it. That's their choice. They're the ones that are going to have to make the decision. Either I live or die, right? Am I wrong about that, Kristen?
No, yeah, you are 100% right. Like, you can't force them as much as you might want them to force them to eat or to get help or anything. Like, it ultimately has to be their choice. But I think there are various things you can do to come alongside them. And I think what you said was perfect. Of like, I don't understand because I haven't been in your shoes, but I want to. Or how can I help you? Or what can I help you
Hmm.
call a doctor? Can I help you find an inpatient program? Can I help you cook a meal once a week that will make sure you're eating enough, kind of thing. So
Hmm.
there are various things you can ask them what they need, or even like, even if they don't know, yeah, do some research like about it, and
Hmm.
kind of familiarize yourself. Even though you won't completely understand not having been in their shoes, there are things you can do and information you can learn just to try and help them the best they can. Because ultimately, yeah, you can't control what they do. It has to be their choice.
It has to
So
be their choice, and
Yeah.
that's why they need God, right? To get them through that.
Yeah.
Laura, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree. And I saw you as my husband trying to control what I
Hmm.
ate because of your
Hmm.
concern for me.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And
No,
and you realized you couldn't do it.
no,
And
it
you
was
were just
exhausting.
out of love and concern, obviously.
Right.
And I, like I said, it exhausted you.
Yeah.
Because you were trying to make me better, but it had to be my choice.
Hmm.
You
And
know, it was.
that was a very hard thing. That was a very hard thing, just to let it go, and like,
I
okay,
can't even imagine. I'm
she has to
sure.
make this choice. What is she going to do? And that's when God did that miracle, right? By having our son be, adopting our son, that's
Hmm.
just, um, how do you all, both of you can answer it. I don't care who does what who does answer it first. It's for both of you all. Do you think this disease is still the same the way it's been years ago, where it's not being exposed, or do you think it's more information's coming out and there's more support and people are being more aware of it? Or Kristen, I'll start with you. What do you see?
I definitely see it being more exposed and people more aware of it, at least from my perspective, than they were, however many years ago. So I definitely think, and I think part of that is because more people are starting to open up about their experiences and their struggles and bringing light to it, which makes more people feel comfortable, like, sharing their stories. And so it's becoming more recognizable and everything. But on the other side, I do think that especially with social media, kind of the
Mhm.
opposite of like
Good
the
point.
diet culture and the rules, and that is coming up even more too. So like, while we're more aware of it, there's also a lot of factors that are, I think, playing into people developing them as well. So it's kind of like both sides.
That's a good point about the social media, and also that the social media can be a good thing too, right? To help people, support groups on, I'm sure, on
Mhm.
Facebook and all that stuff. But you also, it could be the opposite too, right? They could be exposing stuff they shouldn't be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Laura, what's your point on that?
I totally agree. I think mental illness in general has come a long way.
Hmm.
It's not as taboo anymore. But I also agree the social media has totally messed up. As far as exposing all this stuff that you see and you don't need to
Hmm.
see, and all that kind of stuff. But again, like you said, it's a flip side because it can be helpful.
Yeah, bittersweet.
They're
Yeah.
they're right, exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
But it's definitely not as taboo, I don't think, as it used to be. Like I said, mental illness in general, I think is
Yeah,
not, yeah,
it's come
not
a
as
long way.
taboo.
It's come a long
Yeah.
way. Yeah, yeah. You see, well, you see a lot of support groups now and a lot of stuff. It's really come a long way as far as that goes. What I'm concerned about is I think the little girls, young girls that are going to school today, that isn't this still being embedded in their head because of society that they need to look like this, they need to, be the cheerleader, be the swimmer or whatever. Kristyn, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think it's still the schools are still just letting this go, or are they aware of this, or they're concerned? What do you think?
They may be aware and concerned, but I definitely think it is still a huge pressure that society puts on young girls and young women. And I think it's getting
Mm,
even younger and younger. I mean, even, weight like diet programs and stuff are putting like 10-year-olds and 8-year-olds on diets and kind of thing. And, I
mm,
hear stories of third graders coming home going, everyone called me fat today at school kind of thing. And so I think
mm,
it definitely is like, and I have a 4-year-old niece right now. And so like I am just so want to be so protective and like
mm.
just continually telling how beautiful she is and just encourage her of like who
Absolutely.
she is apart from what she looks like and like her body.
Mm,
Because I think it can be so easy to just grow up in today, especially with social media, and not even if people aren't preaching like, oh, only eat, this small amount of calories, but you see,
mhm,
bodies everywhere, bodies that don't look like yours that you think society says you need to look like and everything.
mhm,
So
mhm.
even if the schools are aware of it, I think that between social media and there's just so much that goes on that it's hard to control, and so I think it is not to like scare if you are a young adult, if you're a parent of a young girl,
Sure,
not to like scare you or anything,
sure.
but I just think that there are a lot of just societal standards and pressures that are being put on young girls and young women about that. So just to be aware of that, and just continue to encourage if you do have young girls or young women in your life to encourage them like of their identity in the Lord and not what they look like.
What a great statement. That's so true. Laura, what about you?
Um, I totally agree. You need to compliment, especially little girls, well, boys as well. But don't compliment them on their looks. Compliment them. Oh wow, you cleaned up great today, or
Mhm.
something like that. Not in their looks.
Well, don't you
Not.
don't you think though, like if they have lowest self esteem and they don't think that they look pretty, I mean, you still should encourage them, right? Until
Yes,
like Kristyn said, right? You still want to say like, hey, you're a beautiful little girl, or something, that kind of thing,
exactly. But
right?
not make it the focus.
Right, right,
Not
right,
not make it
right.
not
Just
make it the focus. But of course, compliment them on their. But not make it the main thing and only always tell them, "Oh, you're beautiful. Look at your hair." You know what I mean? No, make
hmm
sure they know they can do other things as well.
hmm
Besides how cute they are, or how pretty they are.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
that's a
good
great.
point. I think too, not mention, like, you can call them beautiful without being like, oh, you're beautiful because you're skinny, or wow, you look so
Right.
thin today. Like, you can
Right.
just say, call them beautiful or handsome or whatever, but
Right.
not to be like, oh, or be like, have you gained weight? Maybe you shouldn't be eating Oreos today or something like that.
Mm.
So
Right.
keeping the focus off of their body, whether they've gained weight, lost weight, whatever, like,
Right.
Even if
looks.
even if they're overweight, right? Tell them how beautiful they are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like your hair looks beautiful today. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not saying exactly. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. Without doing the, bringing their body into it or their weight.
Wow, that's a great point. Laura, I remembered, and correct me if I'm wrong, what didn't help you at the time, you were going to Jenny Craig, am I not right? And you
At
saw
the
the
beginning, yeah.
you saw the outcome of that, and it kind of got out of control from there, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was overweight. Again, not hugely overweight, maybe 20, 30 pounds, not like huge. And I went to Jenny Craig and it worked. And I was so excited. And then it kind of spiraled out of control because I was like, isn't this awesome? Again, I was like getting, my sizes were going down and down. And I was like so proud, that, the size was going down and everything. And yeah, it did. It kind of spiraled out of control
Mm-hmm.
when I went there and started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Now, well, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Jenny Craig or anything like that. It's just that
Right, exactly.
so happened with you, it didn't help you.
Right.
I'm not. I don't want to get the impression I'm saying that they started it or anything.
No,
It's
no,
just
no,
that,
no, no, no,
yeah,
no. My
it's just,
heavens, no.
yeah, it just made it worse, right? It
Right.
just,
I
yeah,
think it like brought it to my attention more. You know
right,
what I
right,
mean?
because that's what
But
they focused on, right?
yeah,
There was a goal. There was a
right.
goal that
And
they had
that's
to
what they
do,
focus on is for you to be able to lose weight. And there's
and
nothing wrong with that to do it in a healthy way.
I think that person that whether they have like a counselor, those programs or something, didn't they tell you you're losing too much? They even told you that, right? Because they were concerned and they knew something was
Yes.
going on. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm not blaming them at all. Like I said, and they're there to help people lose weight the healthy way. They
Hmm.
want you to do it correctly. They're not to, they want it to be done correctly. That's what, and again, they did notice, and they had told me that I was, losing too much,
Hmm.
too
Hmm.
quickly.
Now, Kristyn, you said you also help people with the mental health issues as well. Is that right? Can you explain more detail with that?
Yes. Like I said, very passionate about it and just opening up and shedding light on it. Because eating disorders are a type of mental illness. While they do affect you very physically, like, it is that mental illness as well. And so that ties into it. And then also throughout my life, I have struggled with depression as well.
Right.
And so that's why that's kind of tied in, which often, a lot of times, eating disorders can be tied into OCD or depression or anxiety. They can be tied in with another mental health illness as well. And so again, similar to eating disorder, but I just want to like destigmatize it as like, if you're a Christian and you struggle with mental health, depression,
Hmm.
anxiety, OCD, etc., like, there's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean you didn't have enough faith. It doesn't mean that God doesn't love you or anything. And so my huge thing is sharing my story, but then really like just shedding truth of what Scripture says about it, and not just kind of like the stigma, like the myths that are going around that means like if you struggle with mental health that you're a bad Christian or you did something wrong or you don't have enough faith or anything like that. And so really just opening the floor and letting people know like the truth that there is hope as you struggle through this, but also that there's nothing wrong with you that you because you struggle.
Have you helped people that just if their focus was just the mental health and not the eating disorder? Have you done that too as well or no?
Yes, there have been, because the depression's slightly more newer, for me,
Hmm.
having walking through it, and so eating disorder, is what I have most of my background in and what I've experienced. But there are definitely some people, whether that's like people on social media or even friends in my life who just struggle with depression or just struggle with anxiety, that I've been able to walk alongside and help encourage them as well.
Okay, so when you say you help someone, does somebody contact you, or how does your ministry work? What exactly do you do for
So right
people?
now, I don't work like one on one with anyone. It's
Hmm.
more of the content that I put out, whether that's blogs, whether that's social media. I do
Awesome.
want to start a podcast soon of kind of like sharing the
Oh, I
same
encourage that.
messages.
I
Oh,
encourage that.
awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Good.
Yeah, so right now it's mainly just the content I put out. I do have plans and dreams that I'm, dreaming with the Lord and praying about of how
Yeah.
my ministry, whether that's speaking or just that I can work with people. So mostly it's just me sharing my story and connecting people on Instagram, and that kind of thing.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome. Yeah. Wow. What a testimony. What a
I'd
testimony.
like. I'm sorry, Wade.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kilroy. I'd like to, if you don't mind, put the name of your book out there so people could get
Yeah, I
it.
was going to ask you,
Because
can you tell us about
yeah,
your book?
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so it's called More Than Conquerors, after Romans 8, 37. And essentially, it is a devotional for girls and women who either have struggled or are struggling with an eating disorder. And it's a devotional, so I have a couple of different sections. Like the first section is over food and drink, and then body, and then recovery, and then freedom. So each of those sections, it has a verse that we focus on, and then a couple of paragraphs. So I'll share my story, I'll share things that helped, I'll kind of talk about how the verse relates to eating disorders, body dysmorphia, etc. And then a little application section at the end of each verse where you can apply that verse to your own life. So actually, it's not just something you read, but it's something you put into practice that can hopefully help you, just as another tool alongside your recovery journey as you work with, professionals and family and friends and things like that. So yeah, it's called More Than Conquerors, and it's a devotional style that you can kind of go through at your own pace, and just walk with the Lord as He
Awesome.
delivers you from your eating disorder.
Can you get that on Amazon or your webpage, or
Yes, you
where
can
can we
go
get
to Amazon, or you can go to KristynSchott.com, and the book is linked on there as the link to Amazon. So either one,
Okay.
or you can go to
That's
Amazon, type
great.
that in.
That's great. Do you plan on writing books in the future, more books, or?
I do, yeah. So I love writing, and I believe it's a gift God has given me. So I do have a few books that I'm kind of working through, planning out, starting.
Hey, man, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Laura, what about you? Do you have any goals with helping people or anything like that? And what do you try to do?
But like I told Kristen earlier, I want to talk to people about this and give God the glory.
Mm,
And that He healed me and put me through this, and let people know that you're not bad. Even if you're a Christian, it does happen to Christians. It doesn't mean you're not a Christian because it's happened to you. There's, and like you said, it's not just eating disorders, it's depression, anxiety, all the mental issues. It happens to Christians. Just because
mm,
you're a Christian, like I said, we're all human and fall short.
mm.
So, just because, don't feel bad about asking for help or getting help, if just because you're a Christian, because it does happen. It doesn't mean you're perfect just because you are a Christian.
Right, right, right. Wow, what an outstanding hour we had today. And Kristen, any final thoughts that you have for us today that you'd like to say? I just want to thank you both for coming on. I thought this was a very important subject to bring out, and I'm glad that we were able to meet and do this. And I'll definitely be praying for you and your ministry. And and if you need any help from us, just because Laura has has been on that same storm as you, please reach out to us, and I'm sure that she'll be glad to help you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
and
great coming on here and having this conversation with you, Laura, and you, Kilroy, and just I think so important and so awesome that you guys are shedding light on this, because, like I said, I think that's what Laura and I really want to do is like show people
Hmm.
not to be ashamed, how much God loves you despite having gone through this, and just like that there is hope for recovery.
Right. Now
exactly.
does your ministry, Christian, does it also give like phone numbers they can call nationally as well? Do you give them contacts as well, or do you know how they can? Let's say somebody's like literally has no idea how to help their daughter.
Yeah, so I don't have like specifically a list, but I know there are, and that's actually a really good idea that I might add to my website of like
Hmm.
other contacts for national eating disorder association and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you said, it's come a long way. But I can
Hmm.
remember there was, you couldn't find many places like that. So it's great. I think that this is always going to be an ongoing battle. I'm sure because of the way our world is, and people not understanding, it'll give them educated. I think that's the main thing. If people understand, then they can get that support they need to get help, and it's just one of these things that we live in a fallen world, just like with the alcoholics and drug addicts. It's something unfortunate we're going to be facing, but people like you and Laura are there to help. And I think God allowed you all to go through that, because if you didn't, you wouldn't understand and you wouldn't be able to help others. I think that's why he has us go through all these storms. Don't you agree?
100%.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Don't hang up on me. I'm just going to close here, and I'm going to talk to you guys after the show. Okay. Thanks so much for joining. All right, guys. I want to thank Laura and Kristyn, and please go on Kristyn Schott's information. I'll put in the notes how to contact her and her book and everything. And we just want to thank you all so much, and for joining us. Until next time, have a great one.